been a good choice
No.
either. She was a terrible choice. She's a corrupt politician, one of the most unlikable people that's ever run for office. They were trying to get people to be supporting her just because she's a woman. This is going to be her history. Women, ladies, I stand with her. So there's all these women that have this blind allegiance towards this career politician, completely full of shit. She's been full of shit forever.
From the very beginning, the Hillary Clinton story was sold to the public as one of inevitability, the unshakable woman, the seasoned veteran, the unstoppable force of Washington politics. But when Joe Rogan gets a hold of her legacy, that carefully built myth doesn't just crack, it shatters. He doesn't waste time with polite introductions or political formalities. He comes swinging, cutting right into the core of her image, exposing the uncomfortable truth. Hillary Clinton.
Conversation between James Comey.
110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined by the owning agency to contain classified information.
When James Comey testified about what he did and what they found with the Hillary Clinton emails, and then her version of it.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material.
She's just a straight liar. She deleted 33.
Clinton wasn't the only choice for America. She was, in Rogan's words, a disaster dressed in power suits. Think about it. For decades, Hillary positioned herself as the smartest person in every room, the one who had been battle-tested through scandal, loss, and political warfare. But Rogan flips the script. Instead of celebrating her as a warrior, he paints her as a political machine so old and glitchy it can barely function. Every calculated smile, every perfectly staged diner photo op, every robotic laugh on a talk show.
Just a puppet of banks, and those people make shit piles of money from speeches, and there's major problems with the Clinton Foundation. It's not even around anymore. It's a dark, dark, dark legion. And meanwhile, she's doing all this Me Too talk. Her husband's a goddamn predator.
Yeah.
He's been a predator forever.
Yeah.
She said that Monica Lewinsky was a grown woman and it wasn't an abuse of power. Get the f*** out of here.
How old is Monica?
She was 20. He was the president.
Yeah, 20 is, you're a kid.
He was the president. There's no more powerful person on earth. If that's not an abuse of power, what is an abuse of power? You're
course.
banging someone who works for you and you run the world?
Rogan mocks it all. He calls it the kind of forced relatability that makes you wonder if Hillary had to Google how to act human before stepping in front of a camera. And then he goes further. He doesn't just poke at the surface, he digs into the scandals that defined her career. He brings up James Comey's testimony, the classified emails, and her repeated denial that she ever mishandled sensitive information. "I did not email any classified material," she said. But as Rogan points out, the FBI found 110 emails containing classified content. To him, it wasn't just a lie. It was a deliberate attempt to rewrite.
Sides, though. I see the side that if you're an anti-Trump person and you find out that he's doing something that's against the law, you'd want to prosecute him for it. I don't know the specifics of the Hillary Clinton email thing in terms of like what those files were, but if they're the same classification of files as like he had, you could make the argument they were more vulnerable because they were on a regular laptop.
Well, and it's still destroyed after a subpoena. After
Right.
a subpoena. Imagine if Trump was subpoenaed for this information. Instead of handing it over, he burned it.
That is where shit gets really squirrely.
Yeah.
Flipping over stones in a swamp.
reality. And when she deleted 33,000 emails after a subpoena, Rogan doesn't mince words. He calls her exactly what the evidence makes her look like, a liar who thought she was untouchable. But this isn't just about emails. Rogan widens the scope. He reminds his audience of how Hillary spent years building an image of being bulletproof. Yet time and again, her career was stitched together with scandal after scandal. From the Clinton Foundation's shady donations to her dismissive comments about Monica Lewinsky, he exposes how every empowered feminist talking point.
He's asked about it. Was that some sort of abuse of power? She's like, no, Monica Lewinsky was an adult.
A president of the United States cannot have a consensual relationship with an intern. The power imbalance is too
Who was
great.
an adult. But let me ask you this. Where's the investigation of the current incumbent, against whom numerous allegations have been made, and which he dismisses, denies, and ridicules?
It's also like,
fucking president,
so
man.
the only time there's an abuse of power is when children are involved?
Yeah.
Like, what the f are you talking
That
about?
is crazy.
Crumbles under the weight of her hypocrisy. How can someone preach about believing women while defending her husband, one of the most notorious political predators in history? When Hillary brushed off the Lewinsky scandal by saying Monica was a grown woman and not a victim of abuse of power, Rogan explodes with outrage. Are you kidding me? She was 20 years old. He was the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world. If that's not abuse of power, then what is?
Provided all my emails that could possibly be work-related.
Several thousand work-related emails that were not among the group of 30,000 emails returned by Secretary Clinton.
When they rigged the DNC, they rigged the primaries so that Bernie Sanders was going to lose.
I thought using one device would be simpler.
She also used numerous mobile devices to send and to read email.
She had her people into the DNC way in advance. That Donna Brazile book about it is mind-blowing.
That's the tone Rogan sets. Relentless, unfiltered, and unapologetic. He rips through the polished speeches and the PR armor, tearing it down until all that's left is a career that looks less like a public service and more like a blueprint for survival. Hillary Clinton, in his eyes, isn't a trailblazer. She's the perfect example of how ambition without accountability corrodes trust in politics. And just when you think he's done, Rogan hints at even darker territory. Scandals that go beyond emails and photo ops, controversies so deep they make her career look less like leadership and more like a swamp of corruption waiting to be drained. If the email scandal was the spark, Benghazi was the wildfire that Hillary could never escape. Joe Rogan doesn't let that one slide. He dives straight into the 2012 attack, reminding everyone how 4 Americans, including Ambassador Chris Stevens,
part was she was on NPR, and Terry Gross says, you used to be against gay marriage, your husband passed DOMA, which made it a federal law that gay marriage won't be recognized by the federal government, and you changed your position. Like, how did that happen? Was it because Americans became, and Hillary's like, well, America changed their point of view. She goes, no, I understand Americans changed their point of view. What was your mental process? And she goes, no, Terry, you're saying that I changed my mind for political purposes. She starts yelling at her.
You changed your mind. I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words.
were killed on her watch as Secretary of State. And when Congress pressed her on accountability, Hillary delivered the infamous line that would haunt her forever. What difference at this point does it make? Rogan stops cold at that statement. To him, it wasn't just political spin. It was the ultimate example of cold, calculated indifference. He frames it as the moment the mask slipped, when the political operator behind the polished speeches finally revealed her true face. And Rogan doesn't stop there. He points out how her dismissive attitude during Benghazi wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a long-running pattern, a survival instinct where denial
Are the people that are like maybe disrespectful to the servers and you find out about it, they sent food back.
The Democrat wall of support for Hillary Clinton's use of a private, unsecure server for official government emails and attachments. Yeah, I remember all of that.
It's not the main guy, it's the support staff.
Her party rallied to her defense. And to this day, it maintains she did nothing wrong. Of course.
The main people are not the president.
As if that woman has a scintilla of credibility on any issue related to national security.
The main people are the people that are running Raytheon, the people that are running these gigantic...
Deflection and blame shifting were the only strategies she knew. Every time she was backed into a corner, Hillary didn't accept responsibility. She tried to rewrite history. Rogan compares it to a captain steering a ship straight into an iceberg, and instead of admitting disaster, insisting the iceberg was just a temporary inconvenience. Then comes the Clinton Foundation, the so-called charity that Rogan treats like a late-night horror story. He talks about how the foundation raked in millions from foreign governments and corporations while Hillary was in power, raising eyebrows about what those donors were really buying. Was it humanitarian work, or was it access to one of the most influential political families in America? Rogan paints the picture clearly. The optics were so bad that even when nothing was proven outright illegal, it still stank of corruption. And then, almost like clockwork, donations mysteriously dried up after she lost the 2016 election. Rogan laughs at the timing, suggesting the Clinton Foundation wasn't about charity at all. It was about influence. And when her influence disappeared, so did the money. But perhaps Rogan's sharpest blows come when he zeroes in on Hillary's hypocrisy. While she brands herself as
infuriated when people that I knew that I was friends with were trying to tell me that Hillary Clinton was a good choice. And that's the same choice. I'm like, look, I don't know if she's murdered people, but I know that I worry that she's murdered people. That's a real, I really wonder. Like this Seth Rich shit.
I know for first of all, just leave. You don't even need to go there. You know,
there's so many other things.
There's so many other things that
of survival. One of his favorite examples, her history with same-sex marriage. Early on, she opposed it, even while her husband signed DOMA into law. Later, she pivoted, claiming she had evolved. But when pressed in interviews, Rogan points out how defensive she became, snapping at reporters for daring to suggest that her shift was politically motivated. To Rogan, it was proof that her evolution wasn't about progress, it was about power. And then there's Wall Street. Rogan never misses a chance to remind audiences about those infamous six-figure speeches Hillary gave to big banks. He mocks the idea that billionaires would pay her hundreds of thousands of dollars just to hear her talk about gardening tips or recipes. No, Rogan insists, those speeches were investments, quiet transactions where Hillary told donors what they wanted to hear behind closed doors while presenting a completely different face to the American public. He roasts the two-faced politics mercilessly, joking that Hillary had one speech for the people and another for the elites, hoping the two versions of herself would never meet in the same room. And just like the Clinton Foundation's sudden decline after her election loss, Rogan points out the telling fact that her Wall Street speaking career evaporated the moment she no longer had political clout. He paints the image clearly. When the power faded, so did the paychecks. To him, that wasn't coincidence. It was evidence that her value wasn't her wisdom or leadership, but her influence. And when the influence dried up, the world moved on. But Hillary's awkward attempts at relatability might be where Rogan goes in hardest. He skewers her campaign style as robotic and lifeless, comparing her rallies to corporate training, seminars where the audience politely claps between PowerPoint slides. He recalls her cringeworthy attempt to connect with millennials through the line, "Pokemon go to the polls," which instantly became a meme for all the wrong reasons. To Rogan, it was the moment an entire generation collectively rolled its eyes, realizing you can't manufacture cool when you're so far removed from the people you claim to represent. It wasn't just awkward. It was a perfect metaphor for her entire career. Forced, calculated, and painfully out of touch. And yet, even as Rogan ridicules her missteps, he drives home a darker point. Hillary Clinton, he says, is more than just a failed candidate. She's the living symbol of an entrenched political class that refuses to fade away. The Washington elite who survive not by inspiring people, but by playing the game better than anyone else. Rogan describes her as a walking political machine, one that's been patched, rebooted, and reprogrammed so many times it's running on glitchy software, still trying to convince people it's state-of-the-art. But Rogan isn't finished. After tearing down her public image, he turns to the international stage, Libya, Iraq, and the foreign policy disasters that became part of her legacy. And in his words, those weren't just mistakes. They were catastrophes that exposed her. True nature as a politician willing to gamble with lives if it meant securing her place in history. And here, ladies and gentlemen, we arrive at the most shocking turn of this entire saga. Just when people thought the controversy had peaked, the revelations took an even darker twist. Behind closed doors, whispers turned into concrete claims that could shatter reputations forever. Sources close to the situation leaked private conversations, hidden documents, and explosive details that not only exposed contradictions, but also revealed the dangerous game being played in the shadows. The fallout was instant. Fans who had stood by with loyalty and trust suddenly felt betrayed. What was once admiration quickly turned into outrage, and the silence from those involved only added fuel to the fire. Social media became a battleground. Memes, threads, and viral clips dissected every angle of the story, forcing millions to question whether what they once believed was all a carefully built illusion. And then came the breaking point, a shocking statement from an insider who boldly claimed that this wasn't just about one scandal. It was about a pattern of manipulation that had been covered up for years. That revelation turned this drama from a temporary storm into a legacy-defining catastrophe. The headlines screamed louder than ever, and for many, this wasn't just entertainment anymore. It felt like history unfolding before their very eyes. But here's the real question. Is this the end of the story or just the beginning of something far bigger? Will the truth ever fully come out, or will it be buried under legal threats, media spin, and carefully crafted PR strategies? Because if one thing is clear, it's that the world is watching, and no one involved can escape the spotlight now. So I'll ask you directly, do you believe these shocking revelations? Or do you think there's still more we haven't been told? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if you think this saga has already hit its peak, trust me, the next chapter might just blow everything wide open. Stay tuned because we're just scratching the surface. And if you don't want to miss the next twist, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because when the next bombshell drops, you'll want to be the first to know.